So I guess I'm going to ask forgiveness before anything happens. Hopefully nothing will happen and everybody will have a good experience. We do ask that, first of all, I'm Sarah Adams. I'm the director of the library and happy that so many people want to participate in their local government. A couple rules for this, just to make things flow nicely. If you are a participant, please mute your microphone and your webcam. If you have a question during the forum, submit it through the chat and it will go to Kate from the League of Women Voters, and she will submit it to the moderator. I think those were the rules. They're pretty easy ones. So I'm going to turn it over to the president of the Ashland and Bayfield County League of Women Voters, Sue Namey, hopefully I said that correctly.
Yes, you did. Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending the candidate forum for Ashland's mayoral race. As Sarah indicated, my name is Sue Namey, and I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of Ashland and Bayfield counties. We are a nonpartisan political organization whose main objective is to promote political responsibility through the informed and active participation of all in government at all levels, especially locally. The League is proud to be nonpartisan, neither supporting nor opposing candidates or political parties at any level of government, but always working on vital issues of concern to members and the public. On February 14th, the League will be celebrating its 102nd anniversary. For over 100 years, we have been working to make democracy work. This candidate forum is but one example of the important work the League promotes. I want to also thank the candidates who are here tonight. Running for and holding public office is an important part of our democracy. It is a huge commitment, yet they are doing their part. Now, I'd like to introduce Joyce Keel, who is our moderator for this forum. Joyce has been with the League for over 10 years. I want to thank Joyce and the other League volunteers working this forum. They were chosen because they live outside of the city of Ashland and cannot vote in this election. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Joyce.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Sue, and good evening, everyone. Tonight, you're going to have the opportunity to assess 3 of the candidates running in the February 15th primary for mayor of Ashland, namely Matthew MacKenzie, David Mettille, and Charles Ortman. And could you please correct me if I didn't say your names properly? All right.
You got her.
Okay. Just to let you know, Richard J. Pufall, not to be confused with the Ashland County Board Chair and City Council Member Richard L. Pufall. Richard J. Pufall is also on the ballot, and though invited, Mr. Pufall is not appearing tonight. So the format is opening statements, question and answer period, closing statements. I'll explain how this works since all of us participate. First, you'll notice that the responses are time limited. I'll tell you the time limit for each question. Generally, it'll be 1, 1.5, or 2 minutes. And when a candidate has 30 seconds to go, our timekeeper, Gary Sherman, will make this sound. All right, followed by just saying time's up at the end of the allotted time. Now you can complete your sentence and then you have to stop talking. So the reasons for our time limits. First, the League is very diligent about treating all candidates equally. And second, if we don't have time limits, we don't really treat the audience fairly because we try to get to as many audience questions as we can. We know that our format is not perfect, but we hope it strikes the right balance. We randomly drew the candidate names and that determined their speaking order for opening statements. After the opening statements, the candidates answer your questions. Quite a few questions have already been sent to us, so we'll take written questions during the forum as was explained. And Kate Miller, our question sorter, will screen them for defamatory content, which is not allowed, and for duplication. We'll get to as many questions as we can, but we usually run out of time before we run out of questions. And we always get so many thoughtful questions, so apologies if yours isn't asked. So I read the question. A candidate may ask to have it repeated. The candidates will take turns going first unless a question is to a specific candidate, and then that candidate answers and the other candidates may answer or pass. Now, after all candidates have responded to a question, each candidate can have 1 additional minute for rebuttal comment if a candidate desires, and an additional minute for a counter rebuttal if a candidate desires. But you'll see as we go along that most times neither a rebuttal nor counter rebuttal is needed. So I ask you, the candidates, to just signal me if you do want to offer a rebuttal. So after the question and answer period, each candidate will make a 1-minute closing statement. And we plan to finish up about 7:30. So now we're going to hear from the candidates, first for the 2-minute opening statements, and the order will be Charles Ortman, then Matthew MacKenzie, followed by David Mettille. So, Mr. Ortman, 2 minutes.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you fine, Charlie.
Okay, thank you very much. Hi, thank you to the League of Women Voters for this opportunity. Thank you, Gary, for being the timekeeper. It must be an interesting new job for you, and I'm grateful. I guess I will start with just telling you a little bit about myself. I'm going to say I was born and raised in Ashland, but I hope nobody takes that to mean that gives me an edge. It's just where I came from, and I know some other candidates weren't born here. And it's equally as important and says a lot if you've moved here. So I appreciate people who run for that reason. I served in the United States Air Force for 20 years, and I returned to Ashland after I retired because I always knew this was where I was coming home to. And frankly, the only reason I could stand being in some of the places I went was because I knew I was coming back here. This to me is God's country, and I will die here. I serve on the Ashland City Council and the Ashland County Board. I like public service, so I went from one public service job. I tried to retire for 10 years, but some issues were happening, and they called me to service the Pinocchio mine issue. I didn't want to see the Pinocchios turned into gravel, so I jumped on and ran for the county board. I'm on board of directors for the Wisconsin Extension Association, and that's probably my best work. That's where we get the best, the brightest ideas that support the Wisconsin idea, the best knowledge from the university system out to the citizens for practical use. I'm a member and past president of the Business Alliance, and I will say that nothing happens without business. Without people working in jobs, we won't have government, we won't have charities, we won't have anything. I'm the chair of the Ashland County Ag and Extension Committee, vice chair of the Ashland County Land and Water Committee, and a member of the Ashland County Health and Human Services Committee. And I don't want to be on any other committees. Those to me are where the rubber hits the road, where you help the most people. So please, you'll get a good candidate no matter who you vote for this election, and I'm pleased to be running with the 3 other people that I am. Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. MacKenzie, 2 minutes.
Hi, I'm Matthew MacKenzie, and I'm seeking the nonpartisan position of mayor. Being nonpartisan, I will be everybody's mayor. My door will be open to all. As mayor, I will be open and transparent as I strive to efficiently meet the needs of our community. My wife and I moved to Ashland 29 years ago. We own our own home at 518 9th Avenue West, where we've raised our 3 children. Having raised our family here on a budget, I relate to paying what seems like ever-increasing taxes and utility bills. I have and will continue to be watchful of how we spend our tax dollars. I'm an Army veteran. I was a commander with the rank of captain. I have over 30 years of firsthand experience of active involvement in our community. This includes serving as a city alderman for 3 years, 20 years as a county board supervisor. numerous committees, both county and city, and as a volunteer for community events. I have 30 continuous years of experience running meetings, official public hearings, which is an important aspect of the mayor's duties. I recently retired from the state where I was a public service provider in our area for DNR matters. I relate and understand fixed income limitations. So I do not support new taxes without public input. New taxes should never be a surprise. Having served for many years on both the City Plan Commission and the County Finance Economic Development Committees, I have a proven track record of supporting new local economic development and of supporting our current businesses. Let's keep Main Street vital and not send business to Madison or elsewhere. I've served on the Public Works Committee dealing with roads, sewer, and water, and I understand we need to continuously schedule and budget for these repairs. I've made my living protecting our environment and fully understand the importance of water, land, and air quality matters. I'll listen, I care, and I have the time to serve. Ashland's taxes and fees may be encouraging people to move out of town. Let's work on changing that. I appreciate your vote.
Thank you. And Gary, I didn't on either case hear the 30-second warning.
Maybe I heard a couple times.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it'll help, because just once maybe isn't enough.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and now Mr. Mettille.
Thank you very much. My name is David Mettille. Yes.
There you go.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is David Mettille. Also, not a coincidence, running for mayor of the city of Ashland. A lot of people on the call, I suspect, already know me, but for those who don't, a little overview. My work in higher education brought me and my family to Ashland nearly a decade ago. And in that time, Ashland has become a place that I love deeply. It welcomed me, it enabled me to put down roots, and it's now the place that I've chosen as my permanent home. Through that time, folks all over town may have met me at local events that I've been a part of, whether it was the polka party by the bay, the scholarship golf classics out at the course, the tree lighting ceremony, both as a city councilor and as Rudolph, or flipping brats at the dedication of the fire hall. I've been there for it all. Currently, I live out on Ashland's East End, and I work in communications for a regional nonprofit. I'm a former foster parent that then turned into an adoptive parent. My civic experience here in Ashland is also pretty varied. I was on the Public Works Committee, the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee, the Economic Development Strategy Committee. I was a city councilor, served 2 terms as city council president, and I'm still currently on the Board of Review and the Planning Commission. But now I sit before you all as a candidate for mayor. I'm here because so many people asked me to be. I'm here because I love this place, and I'm here because I'm qualified, ready, willing, and able. It felt great to be asked to run for mayor by so many people in Ashland, and it's really special to be sitting here with Charlie and Matt to discuss the city that we all love. Obviously, I'm here to ask you for your vote, not only next Tuesday, but again in April. But I hope after tonight, no matter who you vote for, that it's a confident decision that we can all move forward with. So again, thank you for the opportunity to the League of Women Voters, the Vaughn Public Library, and everybody on the call.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we'll start with the question and answer period.
Joyce, did you hear
Yes.
it this time? Did you hear it this time?
No, I didn't. Did the candidate hear it?
Did you guys hear the 30-second warning?
I did not.
I heard it very faintly, though.
Maybe I'll try something else. I'll just say 30. Did you hear me when I said time's up?
Yes.
No.
Are you maintaining the same distance to your microphone, Gary?
Yes.
Well, okay. Well, just get out a pot and pan and make it louder, I guess. I guess. All right, starting with questions and answer period. And we're going to take turns with that. I hope I keep everybody in the right order, but all right. This is sort of a 2-part question. What role do you think the mayor has or should have with respect to the police department? I'm sorry, 90 seconds, Gary. what role do you think the mayor has or should have with respect to the police department, and what are your views about defunding the police? We're starting with Mr. MacKenzie.
All right, thank you. I hope this is better. I understand it was a little muffled before, maybe too loud, but the mayor's role with the police department, it depends on the situation, really. If it's an emergency, the mayor becomes kind of the lead person as far as directing the police department and what they do. However, on the hiring and firing of personnel, we have a police and fire commission that deal with those issues, and that's to keep the politics, if you will, out of the police department, to keep some fairness to it. As far as the defunding of the police department, if you look at our budget, you'll see that the police department, safety, if you will, is a huge part of our budget. And to defund it, I think is an interesting term, and I'm not sure exactly how we can meet everybody's idea of what that might be. But I have been open to discussions about what we could do to help change, if there needs to be change to our police department that makes it more functional for all of us. I have total confidence with our police department, and would be proud to have any of them serve us here. So I guess as far as the defund, I'm open to listening to anybody, and if you have concerns or things that we should be thinking about, my door would be open to discuss those.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mettille.
Thank you. Not to echo too much of what Matt said about the actual role of the mayor when it comes to that, but he's right. We have in writing, the mayor is the head of the police and fire departments. We also have the commissions that exercise their optional powers as the statutes in the state are written. And I know that also based on the city's ordinances, the mayor can delegate their responsibilities to the city administrator if they deem that necessary. I have a very good relationship historically with our city police and fire. That hasn't changed. I think I also agree that the term defunding the police department has gotten a lot of attention. And I think it's really strayed the conversation in Ashland where it needs to be. Having spoken with some men and women who have been involved in both of those departments in our city, and on doors speaking with families of current police officers, I think there's a lot more in common on all sides of this issue about looking at what are the role of our police and how can we make sure that they're meeting the needs of the community, but that we're also respecting what they're doing from a human standpoint. Often we hear that we expect too much of police and there's too much on their plate. So we should look at that. And I know that there is a task force that's been operating for the last year, and I'm really excited to see what comes out of that and what the next mayor can continue to do to bring those two conversations together.
All right, Mr. Ortman.
Yeah, I agree with both Matt and David on the role of the mayor as far as the police department. Certainly oversight and certainly some authorities extended to them. And I think getting to defunding the police, that call has come about from a perception of unequal treatment by the police to different classes of people. And I've certainly haven't experienced that myself in Ashland. I have complete confidence in the police force, but sometimes things can be spun a different way. And, there's used to say there's three sides to each story. I think there's usually 300. But I think our police get a bad rap sometimes. And what we need to make sure is that if there is a perception that our police aren't treating everyone fairly, then we need to work real diligently to make sure that our police are indeed treating everyone fairly, and that we keep our finger on that pulse, and that our police don't get the reputation for being discriminatory or heavy-handed. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You've got 30 seconds.
I'm done. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right. How will you, one minute on this, starting with Mr. Mettille. How will you promote our town to bring new business interests here?
Thank you for that question. I think as someone who chose Ashland as their homecoming from somewhere else, it kind of gives me a unique perspective to know what it's like to talk Ashland up. And I think that one of our biggest strengths as a small town, as isolated as we are, is that we have an incredible resource in our bold local entrepreneurs, and they're our best spokespeople. When I served on that economic development committee, Mari K. Nabozny stood up in front of the room and said, people like me, people like us our voices need to be out there because we're doing the work every day. We know what this community can do, and we're our best representatives. And I absolutely agree with her. As mayor, I would be taking our local entrepreneurs who are here, who have made it, who enrich our lives, and help them spread their story.
Mr. Ortman, 1 minute.
I would second that, and I would also say that we have an Ashland Area Development Corporation that's their job every day. As mayor, like David says, we should be talking this town up, and every opportunity we get, making sure people know that this is a good place to come and make things by the lake, and helping our local businesses that already exist expand if they can, just to make Ashland a place that people want to live. So as we improve Ashland, and there's many plans to do that,
30
we
seconds.
will encourage people to come here through that act, as well as influencing people to come here directly. Thank you.
All right, Mr. MacKenzie.
Thank you. Economic development also starts with supporting the businesses we currently have. So we need to look at how we can do that better. But then as far as developing other things, it would be great if we could take and make Ashland a destination rather than a drive-through. And as far as we need to be creative about what we do and look at things that maybe haven't been done before. The pandemic has taught us all how to Zoom or go to team meetings or whatever. I think perhaps there's an opportunity we could look at taking space here in Ashland and developing some sort of maker space and provide a pool of materials that individuals could use, and they could Zoom wherever they need to Zoom to do their work. And perhaps we could get some development that way. I'd be interested in hearing from other smarter people as far as what we can do, but the key is support what we have, especially the ones that were hurt during the pandemic, as far as our host businesses and things like that, and keep what we have and hopefully build on it and not lose further business. Thank you.
All right.
Joyce, could I get 30 more seconds? Not really a rebuttal, but.
Okay, go.
I just wanted to mention, we've got to get just tagging on and piling on from David and Matt. We need high-speed internet here. We need the best internet everywhere for everyone, so that people don't come here and then leave because our internet is so slow. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else want to put their 30 seconds in? Okay. Move to the third question. And Gary, do this for 90 seconds, please. It's two questions, but they're sort of the same answers or related answers. So I'll just read both questions to you and you can respond to both of them. How will you promote Ashland to outside investors to want to build apartment complexes or duplexes? How will you address the poor housing availability to expand housing opportunities for those who have wanted to move here? So, starting with Mr. Ortman.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm happy to say that the city actually has a good plan to address that. We have to find spots for these housing developments. We have some on the way, but I think we need to have. If it was up to me, we would have one or two houses available. They used to be called spec buildings ahead of the market. So we would have a low rent house or apartment available until it got full, and then we'd build ahead of that. So I think we need to find some way to anticipate the market, and then as a city, we have to find some way to provide those houses. And we're doing a lot that we can, and we can always do more. Thank you.
That was quick.
Sorry, sorry, I forgot to turn my thing back on. I'll get the hang of this sooner or later here. Okay, unless I lost my place, Mr. MacKenzie?
Could you please repeat the second half of the question? I got the first part as far as how to promote to outside investors, but I'm not sure I clearly understood what the second part was. To improve housing stocks is what I think I heard, but.
Well, yes, I'm happy to repeat it. How will you, the second question, how will you address the poor housing availability to expand housing opportunities for those who have wanted to move here?
Okay, housing obviously in any community is a big issue, but especially here for us in Ashland. And we can always use more housing. I know that there's an interest now in developers coming to places where they can find proper siting and develop housing that they can turn around and sell credits for to investors. And you know, the best approach to those is if they come to us and ask us to, you know, what we have available that might fit their needs, and to work with them rather than providing the tax credits to get somebody here that uses the tax credits and leave. If we can find somebody that wants to be here, wants to develop here, that's going to work well for us. And I think we need to talk to our neighbors to the east here, Bad River, and also work with the county as far as how we can deal with that, and hopefully find situations that help all three of us. As far as the improvement of the housing stock, I think property maintenance is a part of that. Was that, did I get shut off?
No, 30
Oh, okay. So as far as the improvement, maintenance program for our community is huge. We have to, you know, have places where people want to live and they need to look presentable. And I think at my time in Ashland, I've seen that improved remarkably, but we need to continue to make sure that we watch that to make sure that we can provide the quality of housing that people are looking for. And the one word that always needs to be associated with housing is safe housing. We can have affordable housing, but we should have safe, affordable housing, and it shouldn't be a place that is not safe to live in. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mettille.
Thank you. This was actually a topic that I was just recently discussing on my Facebook page, or anybody who's not following that. Housing is a big talking point. It has been in Ashland since even before we did all of the work on the comprehensive plan. It was such a big topic then that it was an entire section of the comprehensive plan, and it came up again in the 2018 Economic Development Committee work that we did. It really is wrapped up into so many layers of challenges, but also opportunities that the city needs to face. And I'm also really heartened to say that the city is working on it, and I've been a part of that work. Just recently at a planning commission meeting, we went through as a group and looked at city-held land and decided what can we put on the market that we can offer up for sale to developers to directly address this exact topic. We went through, I believe, 5 sites. We ranked them. We talked about diversification of our housing stock, which is vital. We talked about varied types of housing. As Matt just said, safe housing is a huge, huge concern. And we went through, and not only did we try to look at what needs Ashland has for the people who want to move here, but the people who are already here and need safer, more affordable housing. And we were able to identify a really good plan for multiple large city-held lots that we can develop proposals for and put out into the world. That's moving. That's happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ortman?
I don't need a rebuttal, but I have to agree with both Matt and David. I think we're all aware that we need to have housing, and people are coming here and not staying because it isn't there. And unfortunately, some people have left that had their houses bought in this market and then couldn't find a rental place cheap enough. So we've got some issues we got to look at. Thank you.
Okay. Did I forget to call on Mr. Mettille?
No, he was last.
Okay.
I think we all answered.
Okay. I apologize. It's so much easier to do this in person where I can see who's talking, really see who's talking here.
Could I get 30 seconds more for just a rebuttal on this, or?
Sure.
I guess one thing that we should do also as a community is look at the non-developable lots that we have and see if there's something we can do to get those into some sort of use. I know that there's been some interest in tiny homes, maybe something like that, or if nothing else, how we can combine properties to infill our community rather than allowing the sprawl that we have. And it makes it easier for us to provide infrastructure if we can infill rather than have to push things out to the outer limits. Thank you.
All right, anybody else want to have a rebuttal? All right, okay, moving to a different topic. I'll give 2 minutes on this because it's 3 questions that came in. I will read all 3 of them. They are interrelated, so you can mix and match your answers. They all relate to drug issues. First, how will you work to stop illicit drugs from coming to Ashland? What are your plans for cleaning up the drug problems here? And then a statement, drug addiction treatment is needed in Ashland. How will you partner with investors to bring rehab and long-term treatment services for men and women? 3 complicated questions, so we give 2 minutes, starting with Mr. MacKenzie.
Wow, thanks. All right, the drug issue is huge. It has not gone away with the pandemic. And I've already been working on this project, if you will. I'm a member of the Health and Human Service Department for the county. And we've looked at, one of the things we've looked at is see if we could get to where we could prevent it from happening in the first place. And we've come up with a program in the county, it's big here in the city, called the Spark program. I was part of that, getting that developed. So we saw this as and I see it as a multi-pronged thing, is do what we can to prevent it in the first place. Give kids an option to do something other than hang out and maybe do drugs. As far as the plan to clean up, that, you know, adds to the cost of everything else we have to do. And all we can do is continue to hopefully work on cleaning it up. You know, make people aware of what to do when they see certain things. As far as, you know, further work with it, the police department, again, you know, it's ironic that people are talking about defunding them, but here's an important role that they play in the drugs. And, you know, I think most people expect something to be done when they call, they see a problem, they want something done. As far as the help, that's truly what really needs to be done in so many of these situations. It's to hopefully provide them the help that they need to get beyond this. There's so many different things that are wrapped into this, but treatment is a huge thing, and the cost of that treatment is the biggest problem. And what we need to do is continue to look for grants and things to help us attack this this need for help. And it can be many different. Was that time up or 30 seconds? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Mr. Mettille.
Thank you very much. Wow, this is a lofty topic, so I'm probably going to write right up to that timeout as well. I'm going to start by saying I know that this is a touchy subject for a lot of people, myself included. My mother is a drug addict. She's not been in my life since I was 3 years old. I found her again when I was 20 to try to form some sort of bond or relationship. It was unsuccessful because those problems still existed in her life. It's pretty well known now that one of the biggest roots of addiction problems, especially in remote communities like ours, is poverty. And it's no secret that Ashland County regularly ties or comes in first for the most impoverished county in the state. But we're not alone. This problem is happening all over our country, and there's places we can look to help us further the efforts, some of which Matt just spoke about. I had recently read a piece on NPR, and I brought it tonight because I thought we might talk about this. And so people should go look this up. It's called Nowhere to Go But Up. A small town confronts its addiction crisis, and it's about East Liverpool, Ohio. That's the town where that infamous picture of the couple overdosed in the front seat with their child in the back. And we all saw that picture, and for a lot of us, that hit really, really close to home. And when I read through this piece, there were so many pieces that we share, and the thing that I want to hit on is that it is treatment that is so vital, but it's, you know, we need supportive housing, we need treatment instead of incarceration, and we need places for people to gather for those wholesome, sober activities before they're using or after they're no longer using. And we have to realize that as a community, this is all of our problem, whether we're drug users or not. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ortman.
Piling on both David and Matt, we have to stop mistreating them. They're regular people. We need to decriminalize substance abuse. Heroin and meth and a few things, those are the only items we make you a felon for using. Nobody gets arrested as a felon for being drunk. It's what you do under the influence. If you hurt someone, you get arrested for that behavior, and that's understandable. You don't need to be made a felon. It makes it harder to treat them. You need to legalize marijuana, because that's one of the few things that's known to be a good substitute for drugs. And if I could yield the rest of my time back to David, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Fine with me.
Thank you, Charlie. I was just wrapping up anyhow, but I'm glad that you brought up some of the other things that we can do. And one of the things that we actually can do to address the hard drug problem, and I realize we can't do it locally till the state moves, but we do really need to revisit legalization of cannabis use. It is not a gateway. In fact, in places where that's happened, not only are there the financial ramifications that are all positive, but we know that hard drug use declines, overdose deaths decline, domestic abuse declines, and those are all interrelated problems that all lead back to poverty and all lead back to cycles of incarceration that are unfair. Thank you.
All right. Well, the next question I was going to ask was a question that came in about what are your views on legalizing marijuana? And you just talked a little bit about it, but why don't we give everybody, Gary, 30 seconds on this, and starting with Mr. Mettille.
Thank you. Well, I guess all that I'll add, since I just did that, a lot of you probably saw both Charlie and I on the Duluth News several years ago when we brought up this conversation. And I printed out, the Chippewa Falls Police Department just posted February 1st to let them to know they had intercepted some cannabis in an investigation. And when they tested, they actually found that it had been laced with fentanyl. And we all know what fentanyl is. We know how dangerous it is. It directly relates to the question that we just answered. And when you legalize cannabis, this stuff doesn't happen anymore. This is the real gateway, and it's the dealers. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Ortman, 30 seconds if you want to add it.
My son was volunteered and served first wave in Afghanistan and 2 tours in Iraq, where he was asked by this country to murder people, and he did it quite well, and he will not kill anything to this day. He called me one day about 7 years ago, and he said, "Dad, I found something that gets me past my PTSD, weed." I said, "Move to Canada," and he did. But now he can't, you know, it's hard for him to find that stuff in the country of his origin, that he just went and was, this country was fine with him killing people, and they don't think he's responsible to smoke weed. That bothers me. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. MacKenzie, 30 seconds.
I'm not opposed to looking at legalizing it. This, of course, is a state legislative issue. It's not truly something we can do here in the city. I would not see where I'd be opposed to looking at medical use of marijuana. I understand that there's clear evidence that shows that that's helpful for some. Some of the other issues that get more difficult to deal with is if we legalize recreational use of marijuana, it's how do you deal with the impaired use of it? And we know we're going to have that, let's be honest. And, you know, with alcohol, there's a test that can be done to do that. And the test to do that for THC, unless it's changed here recently, is a little more invasive and a little more difficult to do. So I think those would be issues that the state legislature is going to have to come up and figure out. But again, As far as total legalization of it, I would not be in support of that, but I could see where the legalization of it for medical use under those controlled situations would be fine. And Charlie, God bless your son. Thank you.
All right. Thanks very much. And just as a reminder to the audience that we are still taking questions. There's a little chat function. It looks like a little balloon or thing. Well, on my machine it does. But yeah, if you want to turn in something, we have quite a bit to go through, but feel free to add yours in. All right. Here is a question. What steps need to be, I'll give 1 minute for this. What steps need to be taken to assure our local government agencies, schools, and community are safe, welcoming, and support equal rights for LGBTQ plus people? Starting with Mr. Ortman.
Wow. I hope that we are not discriminating against the LGBTQ community. I hope we're not discriminating against anyone. It would be a sad state. I know some people think it's happened. I've never seen it happen, and certainly if I ever noticed it happening, I would stand up and say no. As far as in the government, it's you can't. So someone would bring it to my attention, and I would do whatever I needed to do to help it stop. Thank you.
Mr. MacKenzie?
Discrimination laws are pretty strong, and I think they would be appropriate in this situation if that were really going on. I've not heard of such complaints within our community, either at the city level, the county level, or the state level. But if people feel that way, they should definitely step forward and tell us about it so that we can address those issues. But discrimination should not be tolerated nor overlooked by anyone, regardless of where it's occurring. Thank you.
Mr. Mettille.
Thank you. I think
We're losing you, David.
just as a I can call the target on. I'm hoping for them husband.
Here.
And the answer to that is, how do we ensure that like that?
I cannot hear David at all.
I can't feel you're breaking up really badly.
Not coming through here either.
Well, sadly, I think we're going to move on to another question because Mr. Mettille, if you could, I don't know if you need to sign out, sign back in. Sorry, I don't know how that works, but if you could make some change and hopefully improve the sound here. Okay, so okay, we're starting with yes.
I would yield my time to executive question. That's allowable.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you too. What?
We have one person with a mic open. A1,
Okay.
I don't know if that's doing it or not, but someone has an open mic.
All right, could everybody please check theirs and Mr. Mettille, you want to try again?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Very well. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you. Sorry for that. We had a little bit of a technical glitch in the closet over here, but Denise saved us. I had simply said, making sure that we are a safe, welcoming, and inclusive community goes beyond the levels of discrimination. And while we can be sure that we have laws in the book to protect that, there's a difference between that and, again, members of any minority community feeling safe, welcome, and included. I was on a committee as a city councilor years ago where we set mission, vision, values for the city of Ashland. And we specifically included a diversity statement in that work, among other things. And one of the ways that we ensure that the decisions we make for our community work toward one that is welcome, safe, and inclusive for everyone, is to include that litmus test when we're making decisions. Do the policies that we're considering uphold our stated values that we wrote together and we approved? If not, even if maybe not, then it's a bad decision. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Moving on here. Would you support any development of the Clarkson Coal Dock for potential RV expansion and tent camping? 1 minute on that, please. And starting with Mr. MacKenzie.
The short answer is yes. But I think that would be a great spot for something like that. If you've ever been through our parks in the summertime, you see that those spots are all filled up. Any place we have for RV parking, so it's a very popular thing, and I think that would be a great place to look for it. I know that we've looked and even have developed plans in the past. There was a problem at one point for land transfer. I'm not sure where we're at on that issue, but I think any opportunity that we can take advantage of to develop down there would be a wonderful thing to do. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mettille.
If that is what we determine would be the highest and best use of that, absolutely. I think we'd put it through a process just like we would anything else and make sure that the city, the public, is behind us doing that on the lakefront. Where we have that on the lakefront, it works. It gets people here. It's a beautiful spot on the lakefront. It is a great use for it. I would just simply want to make sure, is this the highest and best? If that's what we determine, let's go.
Mr. Ortman.
I can't add anything to that. I would encourage everyone to read the waterfront development plan. I'm sure that's one of the options. It's a very nice plan. A mayor could sit back and just keep that going, and it's got so much, and it's going to interconnect the waterfront with the main city. It's just a really good plan. Read it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. This is another question for Down on the Waterfront. Do you support any future development on the Ashland dock? If so, what would you like to see done on the base? And if you don't support any development on the dock, why not? 1 minute on that. Sorry, Gary, 1 minute.
Fine.
Starting with Mr. Mettille.
Thank you. This is an easy answer for me. Absolutely. I would love to see the dock developed exactly as the beautiful vision and plan that we worked so hard on as an entire city years ago. That was one of the most hopeful and promising moments as a city councilor, was watching people from all over, some folks who grew up here and haven't lived here for decades, were involved. They were so excited to see what we could envision out on that dock. So I would say, as close as we can get to that plan, that's what I would love to see out there. Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Ortman.
What David said, it's happening. The plan is in place. Now they're trying to work on the uplands. It's just, are we going to have enough money, and how do we optimize that money to make sure that this is the attractant we want it to be? It's one of those things that will make Ashland a destination place rather than a flow through, like Matt says. Thank you.
Mr. MacKenzie.
Yeah, the only thing I think I would want to add there is that we need to keep a watchful eye on the trust fund that's been set up for this work, and make sure that we don't allow it to get drained in doing other things near the dock, so that when it comes time to develop things on the dock, we're unable to realize our dreams there. So keep a watchful eye on the trust fund. And dollars are going to get harder to find. Perhaps that RV park would help us do some more of this work as well. So again, just be watchful of the money that we have set aside and earmarked for that work, so we can realize it. Thank you.
Okay, 1 minute on the next question. Do you support a citizen fundraised project of a 50-foot flagpole with USA flag that no city funds are needed for? It says in the question, we have support from the Chequamegon veterans, other local businesses, as well as our police and fire department to support such a project, for support of such a project. So the question is, do you support it? And if you do not, explain your position, please. Okay, 1 minute. Mr. Ortman.
I was in the Air Force for 20 years. I support the flag. Where do they want to put it? What is this for? I don't have enough information. I don't think you can just put a flagpole anywhere. Are they talking about the ORDOC?
I'm sorry, they didn't say in the question.
Well,
just talk about a
depending on where you want to put it, absolutely. I support it, absolutely.
All right. Mr. MacKenzie?
Yeah, I too, like Charlie, I'm a veteran. You would have there's no way that I wouldn't support some sort of work like that. I think the devil's in the details, you know, as far as where it would go. But if we could make something that worked that way and it has the support of veterans and it's not going to cost us anything, I don't see where there's a downside to that. We should definitely look at it. And I could see supporting some effort of that part.
All right. Mr. Mettille?
Yes, this is one of the things that I love about Ashland, the initiative of us all to make our community better. And I think that as long as, again, not to belabor the point, but as long as we made sure that it was going in a place that was appropriate and followed the rules and it wasn't in the middle of an intersection, I guess, I think that we would be silly to take for granted the work that folks want to do in their community and fundraise and do something like that. And I may not be a veteran, both my grandparents were, but thank you for your service, Charlie. See the flag flies on my garage proudly, and I think that anything that we can do to make people have pride in place is really, really good.
All right. And you were breaking up a little bit there at the end, so if there's any adjustments you can make for next time. But here comes the next question. And this relates to, I think, down at the waterfront and other places. It says, is there anything you would do to help promote, I'll give a minute for this. Is there anything you would do to help promote the Chequamegon Bay area? People love coming up to our area to enjoy our bay, but we hide it with all the trees blocking the views. Trails need to be brushed down. We need to open up the Bay Area. Any suggestions on how to promote our Bay? And starting with Mr. MacKenzie.
For years, as part of my job as well. But more recently, I actually had an opportunity this fall to appear on a national TV show and talk about the water quality and the use of Lake Superior here in the Bay. So I'd take every opportunity I can, and if we can leverage more of that, we should. As far as the cleanup of the bay, there's been some work done down there to get rid of some of the exotics, and you can see that that's working in some areas. So as far as the cleaning things up down there, you know, there's always work that can be done there. As far as the walking trail, I take advantage of it all the time in the summer, and I think it's a wonderful jewel that should be highlighted and made more use of. So I don't know what else to say on that, other than as far as the cleanup, we should continue to look at getting rid of the exotics that are in there. Some of the stuff that can be harmful to people as well, such as the wild parsnips and things, and continue that work.
Time's up.
Mr. Mettille?
Thank you. That lake is beautiful, and it's what draws and keeps so many of us here. I don't think it's a surprise. We call ourselves Lake Superior's hometown. And when we did the comprehensive plan, one of the things that our consultant who came into town to help us with that work asked us was, why don't we see more of the water here? And one of the ideas that they had was to open up the view sheds on the avenue that all run toward Lakeshore Drive and look at the lake, except you can't see the lake on the vast majority of them. That's something that I would like to see explored more and a little more aggressively into taking down some of that brush and those trees, many of which aren't in great condition anyhow, and actually open up those views right into our own neighborhood so that the folks who live here too can stand in their front yard and see that lake. Thank you.
Mr. Ortman.
We could pick different vegetation. We could do a lot down there. Our waterfront development plan does have a lot in mind. And of course, they can't get to it all at once and money's an issue. I would say if you have anybody out there who has ideas, talk to Sarah Hudson. Read the waterfront development plan first. Make sure your idea isn't already in there for future implementation. But we need to landscape to retain water, and we need to landscape to grow, pollinators, milk. We need to look at our city as a place where we can sequester carbon and grow food in a very unique, in a good way that promotes the place and draws people in, and maybe you can eat an apple when you're walking down that trail too. Thank you.
All right. All right.
Could I have just 30 more seconds, or a couple of seconds anyhow, just as one rebuttal?
Okay.
I'd like to also remind us that we need to have some understanding and tolerance of what other people like to. Some people would have us mow it right down to the edge of the lake and want to see lawn. Others like to see the old trees because they're habitat trees for woodpeckers and different birds and stuff. So I think we need to make room for a little bit of what helps everybody find comfort in that place down there. Thank you.
Anybody else want to rebuttal? All right, moving along here. The next question is, and I'll give 90 seconds for this. It says the Chequamegon Bay Area adopted the natural step as a framework for making decisions in accordance with sustainability principles. How do you intend to revive a framework for decision-making at the local level that acknowledges the dangers of climate change and works to address it going forward? Starting with Mr. Mettille, 90 seconds.
Thank you. I think that the approach to this would be very similar to some of the things that I said earlier about the diversity question. We have written mission, vision, and values for the city. This exact topic is not only touched on, it's focused heavily on in those. And I think we need to develop a framework where we are actively judging the decisions that we're making based on how well they do or do not support those written values. As if we are constantly reminded of our values every time we make a major decision, we will have a trail of accountability that shows these are the things we believe in, these are the things that we've said are matter to us, and that's why we make decisions the way that we do. Thank you.
Mr. Ortman.
We need to landscape to conserve water, to retain water, and our actions need to sequester carbon, not release it. It's ridiculous to me to mow grass, burning carbon to make that plot of land hold even less carbon. You lose carbon on both sides of the equation. I know that's hard for people to look at now. I used to say, why do people hate long grass? But you can make these areas we have beautiful and still sequester a lot of carbon and retain a lot of water. And obviously, if we look at what's happening in the West, we need to start doing that before we end up like the West. I mean, we're lucky we're by the lake, but we've got to start behaving differently just in case. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. MacKenzie.
Yeah, I think those are all good comments. Climate control is a controversial topic and has a lot of different hot button items for different people, but you can't deny with the weather we've been having that we've had to deal with some high water that we haven't seen or wouldn't normally see for 500 to 1,000 years. And that makes us need to look at our road standards. We need to make sure that our roads can hold up to the different weather patterns that we're seeing, both in the summer and in the winter. As far as plowing plans. Stormwater, Charlie touched on it as far as having stormwater runoff or stormwater gardens. There's a lot of work that's going on in that area, and it will probably continue. And we also, as a community, need to look at, like Charlie has pointed out, the mowing, what we mow, and where can we maybe avoid some of that. And also the pervious surfaces. Instead of having everything non-pervious where it has to run off, let's look at incorporating more pervious type surfaces that will allow the water to soak in rather than run down and accumulate and cause issues for us with our stormwater.
All right.
Did I hear time up?
No, you still have 17 seconds. Okay.
Okay.
I think I just lost it. Sorry.
Okay, the next question. When the state refuses, I'll give you 90 seconds on this. When the state refuses to give more state aid, how will you ensure the city can continue to provide the level of service we are used to and ensure that we are improving our city roads, etc.? So starting with Mr. Ortman.
I'm of the opinion we're going to, well, what I want to have happen is I want to educate the public on the totality of the cost to maintain that which we already have and how much it would cost to keep that up in any kind of maintenance cycle that's sustainable. I don't think we have the money. I don't think we can afford what we have. So I think we have to make some hard decisions about how much we can afford to pay or want to pay. And then with that money, what do we want to keep? So those are discussions I would have with the public down the road. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. MacKenzie.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you as far as I understand when the state refuses to provide funds, but I couldn't hear which funds we were talking about.
Well, and it didn't, the questioner didn't say, just I'll repeat it. It says, when the state refuses to give more state aid, how will you ensure that the city can continue to provide the level of service we're used to and ensure that we are improving our city's roads, etc.? So the questioner didn't specify what kind of state aid.
Okay. As far as state aids or state revenue, shared revenues, if the state stops giving us shared revenues, honestly, we're going to crash in a lot of areas. We cannot get by without those state aids. And if you look at our budget, they're a large part of our budget. Traffic aids as far as helping develop our roads and things. And, you know, honestly, that money is collected at the state for vehicle registrations and earmarked on and gas tax and stuff to come back to communities. So it can, you know, that stuff has got to keep coming. As far as other shared revenues, that also helps fund some of our police and fire protection. And if the state would turn around and say they're going to stop doing that, we have no way to increase our funding sources. We're limited on what we can raise our taxes, and it's based on our economic development, and our economic development is not there. So we cannot make up this difference. We can't, you know, just say we're going to have a new sales tax because the state limits what we can tax. So there really is no way to make up this money if they start giving it to us. The whole idea is the people that live in Milwaukee and such bigger communities, they help pay for some of our services because this is where they want to come and play, and they expect those services when they come here as well. So it's a sharing of the wealth in the larger communities to help us provide services that other people expect when they visit our areas. So we can't do it without their help, quite honestly.
Time's up.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mettille.
Thank you. This is a huge problem for communities like ours all over the state. Over a decade ago, Governor Walker and the legislature then took away an incredible portion of state aid, and it's never come back. And with the state legislature sitting where it is, it's not going to anytime soon. We've gotten by trimming here, trimming there, deferring maintenance more and more, but we're to a point where we can't defer anything else. I think that the current city staff have done wonders, working with very, very little to give us the maximum value we can. That's going to continue. The city administrator is going to work with the department heads just as he has. But as mayor, what I'd like to do is bring in sort of a new breath of inspiring our city staff to do where we've had some successes, and that's look outside of Ashland. We're not alone in this. There are solutions everywhere, and we see them every now and then come home to roost and really benefit the public at large. We have a Parks and Recreation Director, Sarah Hudson, who can bring in more grant money than you could shake a stick at, and she makes it look easy, but it's not. In Public Works, we've got Chance Green, who went out and found a solution that has put our work as far as our sewer system and correcting the overflow problem way farther ahead than we thought it would be when I was on city council. And so we need to see more of that, and I'll really try to make sure to know that city staff have those opportunities to get out in the world and find the creative solutions to bring back home and help us here.
All right. Thank you. Okay.
Could I have 30 more seconds, please?
Sure.
Just to give everybody an idea what number we're looking at for the current city budget of Ashland for the intergovernmental revenues, you're looking at almost $5 million that would be lost if they just took all aids away. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Somebody's got some echo. I'm not quite sure, but people could check their systems and okay. 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 If you were the mayor, what would you do to get the 6th Street West problem resolved? 1 minute, please, and we'll start with Mr. MacKenzie.
I guess I'd like to see, let's make 6th Street flat again. But I recognize that, and I live right off of 6th Street, so I drive it every day, and I know how it is. But we've got to remember there is litigation going on with that, and that's a slow, cumbersome process. And I know that they're patching things to get it, but we got to cross our fingers that we get through the litigation and they could fix it correctly. But yeah, I would support whatever we can and would want to see us continue to make sure that maybe there's something else we can do to help move the litigation along quicker so that we can make 6th Street flat again. So thank you.
Mr. Mettille?
Very similar answer. Most of that information is discussed only in closed session, so we don't have a lot of access to really what's going on. But having sat in that chair with other litigation for the city, Matt's right. Yeah, it's a slow, cumbersome process, and if I were mayor, I'd be doing everything I can to represent the city's case firmly, working toward a timely resolution that also isn't on our dime, but not being part of those conversations, I don't know where it's at. I can just say that, unfortunately, for now, we have to be patient and ride those literal waves together.
All right, Mr. Ortman.
It is exactly as both Matt and David have supposed. It's in litigation, and at every turn, we are, of course, watching for the city's back. And at some point, we'll be able to tell you, well, we'll all know what happened, but it isn't yet, and it's not likely to be soon. So thank you.
All right. Next question, 1 minute. The commissioner says, many times I have tried to get the city to enforce city ordinances regarding property and home maintenance. Very little happens in response. Neighborhoods suffer as a result, and so do property values. What will you do to rectify this situation? Starting with Mr. Mettille.
Thank you for that question. Starting back when I was in council, there was a position created for this exact purpose, and this is a touch and go topic, I think, in Ashland, because we also have to be really cognizant of while yes, we need to be enforcing ordinances and be doing that in a fair manner. There are instances wherein folks are doing the best they can, and it costs a lot of money to keep up a home or whatever have you. We've done improvement projects. We had a private donor who put money forward for that. I think what I would do really is try to just raise public awareness for the fact that we can help take care of each other too. Your neighbors got a little bit of long grass, maybe mow it for them, talk to each other as community members. Nobody's letting their house go to piss you off. There's usually an underlying reason.
Time's up.
Thank you.
Mr. Ortman?
Yeah, I agree with what David's saying. There's a lot of poverty out there, and granted, there's also people who don't take the time. And we had a employee that's job was to do that. We've lost her, and I would look to see as mayor if we could maybe get that going again with some different, better fences, so that would take into account all the different circumstances that some Dave mentioned. But yeah, we need to make sure that our houses are painted. We can't have ghetto looking blocks next to beautiful looking blocks. If we want this place to be a destination town, it has to look good. It has to have a coat of paint on it, and the look of when you drive through that, these people, everyone here cares about this place, you know, from the less affluent neighborhoods to the most affluent. But that's very difficult, and what Dave said about it, that makes it difficult, is absolutely true. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. MacKenzie.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think the enforcement of city ordinances are important in this situation. And I guess as mayor, I'd want to review where we're at with the replacement of the maintenance property officer. I know we had one full-time position, and at times it was a part-time position, I think, as well, or was it just fully rolled into it? But either way, the enforcement of the city's maintenance ordinance from the beginning has been a hot button topic. And initially the city even told them they didn't want citations issued. But unfortunately, sometimes it takes a stick to correct some of these problems. And I think the way it's been going in the past, especially with the pandemic, has kind of caused a hiccup here. And as mayor, I think it would be worth looking at how we do that and what improvements we can make to deal with some of this. I know some of it is a complaint-based item, so if you call and complain, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, whereas if you just tolerate it, nobody says anything and nothing gets done about it. Sometimes it's difficult to go over and talk to a neighbor about it, and they're looking for somebody else to do it for them. So I understand all that part of it, and as a mayor, I'd be interested in sitting down with our staff to figure that out. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Next question. 1 minute on this. Do you think that the process recently used to pass the wheel tax was proper? And the person says they thought there was limited community input. So your comments about that? 1 minute, starting with Mr. Ortman.
We could have done better. There isn't a process around that couldn't be improved. I would say to that even though that wheel tax came out of the blue at the end there, it was said that we agreed to it during the earlier budget process. And that's probably true, but these things were noticed, and anyone could look at the agendas. In hindsight, certainly I would not bury a tax in a budget. So for the future, don't expect anything like that to happen again. I think that's a lesson we've all learned at the city. Thank you.
Mr. MacKenzie?
Yeah, I think this issue in particular, I hear a lot of discussion on, and I think it needs to be looked at and get a better understanding of how it got to where it got to, and definitely how do we do things better in the future. But you know, I agree with many. It did seem to be a surprise, and I think we shouldn't have surprises that way, and we should take a look at how this got this way and, you know, go from there.
Mr. Mettille?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a bit of an echo, but I think myself included, a lot of people were surprised that this was coming. And I think that at least the three of us talking to you all tonight are pretty in the know about most things that are going on in the city. So I think it's one of the reasons why I think I've been talking to people on doors a lot about what we can do to make the work that gets done in this room maybe a little bit more accessible. And that maybe we publish agendas a different way or in more different places. I've been putting them out on social media for folks, and I've already gotten feedback that we've never seen that done before. And I've noticed some city councilors are too, and that's great. So I think that definitely was a big red flag to maybe pump the brakes a little bit and look at how we're talking to people and how we're communicating about the really important decisions that are going to happen right here at these stations. Thank you.
All right. Next question, 1 minute. Does studies show that the arts and creative industries often precede further economic development? How would you facilitate the enhancements of arts and culture in our community? Starting with Mr. MacKenzie.
Well, I'll be the first to tell you I don't have the answers to everything, and this is one of them. But what I would do if I were mayor is I would try and find smart people to help me with this, as far as what we could do to cause that to happen in some sort of meaningful direction. Again, tax dollars are tight, so our discretionary spending is very limited. But like the flag thing that was talked about earlier, if somebody has an idea of how they can do something and they can come up with the funding for it, I would be willing to work with whoever on these issues. Maybe, you know, I know that in the past libraries and stuff have been a big part of this, and maybe it falls under their purview. I'm not sure. I think there's somebody we could ask, but anyhow, I don't have the answers on this, but I'm open to facilitating whatever we can to you know, arts and culture is worth celebrating for everybody. Thank you.
Mr. Mettille?
This is a great question, and the premise is absolutely spot on. And, you know, there was a time here where this wasn't so far-fetched. It wasn't so a bit of a foreign topic. And we've got the folks right here in the area who we can bring to the table. I mean, you look at the success at Big Top and Stage North and the Groundlings, the Reinhardt, the Chequamegon Theater Association, all these folks with the passion, the skills, the know-how, they're all right here. And we just need to bring them to the table. I think that there's kind of this notion when things got hard and the population started shrinking and the economy took a downturn, things went away, like the Arts and Letters series at Northland College. We can bring that stuff back. We've got incredibly creative people. We know how to fundraise. We've just got to bring the groups together and see what we can do.
Okay. Mr. Ortman?
Yeah, I guess I was thinking about that question. I thought, well, we got art all over this place, kind of like regionally a big thing. But as David said, some things have gone away. I always support the arts. I remember this saying that Winston Churchill supposedly made when someone suggested that they cut the arts to fund World War II, and he said, well, what are we fighting for then? So, I mean, I work hard so I can go eat a delicious meal and see a movie. There's always some kind of art. And as mayor, or even in my own personal life, I support those things. I think that's what makes life worth living. So that's my answer. Thank you.
All right. And as a total aside, I got a comment from somebody that said, could you let them know that the flagpole we are hoping to be installed would be at the far end of the ORDOC. So that may be one mystery of the evening solved. All right. Next question, 1 minute. How will you get people with electric cars to stop in Ashland? So, Mr. Mettille.
Well, I think if we want people with electric cars to come here, we've got to have a way for them to charge them. I actually had just driven my son back to his other parent this weekend and stopped to make a phone call, pulled off into a hotel, and realized that the entire end of this hotel parking lot had these electric vehicle chargers installed. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I don't think City of Wausau anywhere has them municipally installed. And maybe that's not the right answer right now. But I wonder if some of the businesses who are wanting to attract those people, if there's a way for us to work with them and maybe find some grant dollars to get those installed, be mutually beneficial. It's something to investigate. Thank you.
Mr. Ortman.
Yeah, exactly what Dave said. That's something we need to look into. Electric cars are becoming more prevalent. Maybe at the entryways we have charging stations, or maybe businesses get together and find a place that they feel would be the most convenient and yet the most, it would cause those people to look up and say, oh, I'm going to go over here while my car is charging. Definitely need it's something to investigate and see what we can do.
All right, Mr. MacKenzie.
Yeah, as far as the electric cars go, we have them visiting our area already. I have a son that came to visit me here this past summer and had an electric car. So that meant we had an extension cord hanging out our front door for a while to get the thing charged. I think, honestly, this is one of those things where we can work within the community with different businesses and perhaps get them to recognize that by having a charging station, they'll attract a visitor that way. As far as the motels and different things of that. And I think also in the infrastructure package that is being kicked about, there's a lot of discussion in there about how that sort of money can be used to help provide this to encourage development in that direction as well. So it's going to happen. There's no doubt this is one of those, it's going to happen. I'm not sure of the details at this point, but I can't see where it's not going to happen. So thank you.
All right. Here's a quick question. Well, if I can get my technology straightened around here. I'll give you 30 seconds on this. Will you attend Superior Days, starting with Mr. Ortman?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Mr. MacKenzie?
Yes, I think Superior Days is a good event. I've been there several times myself, and it's a chance to sit down across the table from several different legislators that we normally don't get a chance to talk to, as well as department heads for all the major departments within the state. And it's a great chance for us to talk about our needs and how they could perhaps help us. So I would look forward to attending Superior Days. I would even suggest that we get more involved and have more Ashland Day items on that agenda as well.
Okay. Mr. Mettille?
Absolutely. I'm a big fan, and I think a lot of people in town know, of reminding Madison that we're here, and not necessarily always not only what we need, but reminding them what we contribute to the state, which is valuable. So of course I would go, and I'd encourage others to go with me. Thank you.
Well, we're getting pretty close to 7:30. We've still got a lot of great questions, but I think we've done a really nice representative sampling of different topics so that the audience has a good sense of where the candidates are coming from. So let me finish up with just one last sort of generic overview question that was submitted to us. And the question is, I'll give you a minute and a half on this. When you imagine the city of Ashland in 20 years, what do you see? And we'll start with Mr. MacKenzie.
Yeah, I think in 20 years from now, if you look at the forecast for our census, we're going to be a smaller town. We're losing population. The size of our households are also getting smaller. It's if you look at the data for like 2040, you'll see that the home size is going to be an average of less than 2 people per home. So we're getting smaller, and that's one of the things we're going to have to deal with, is how do we deal with a smaller population and less people to help cover what we need. Obviously, hopefully we're going to need less so that we can cover those expenses. But it's our community, as it is forecasted now with most recent census, is not to grow, but to continue to decrease in size. So I guess 20 years from now, I hope I'm here to see how that looks, but I expect to see fewer people in town. Thank you.
Mr. Mettille.
I mean, I think it's safe to say none of us have a crystal ball. And so I'm going to choose to answer this question about the Ashland I hope I see in 20 years. I'll be here because I've chosen this. This is it. I'm home. And what I know about the history of Ashland is that through good times and bad, Ashland's adaptable. And that's a credit to the hardy perseverance of the people who live here, who choose to make it their home. So I think Matt's probably right. We'll probably shrink a little bit in population, but I think we'll continue to adapt our local economy. We'll continue to maintain a really good relationship with the natural resources that we've been blessed with. And I think that in 20 years, we'll all be really glad that we made the hard decisions that we've made for the last 10 years and the next 10 to make sure that the Ashland in 20 years is one that we can all be proud of. Thank you.
Mr. Ortman.
I hope to see a happy, healthy, housed community enjoying their lives, not addicted or suffering from substance abuse. I hope we've solved all the problems and there's no homeless wandering around needing a place to be and some mental treatment. I would just love to see this area thriving and everybody living their best life. Thank you.
All right. Well, again, apologies if your question wasn't asked. We really do appreciate all of the great questions that came in. And again, I think we've gotten a good representative sampling of the various the mayor might have to deal with. So, we have to conclude the question and answer period, and it's time to hear the one closing remarks from the candidate. We're going in reverse order from their opening statements. We're starting with Mr. Mettille.
Thank you. Again, sincere gratitude to the League of Women Voters and the Vaughn Public Library for organizing tonight, to both Matt and Charlie for the great conversation, and to everybody who logged in tonight. I hope that those who didn't already know me got a little bit of a better picture of who I am and see why I'm here in this chair tonight. When I was a city councilor, I earned the reputation for being a representative who listened more than he spoke and took every opportunity to make really careful, reasoned decisions for Ashland. A respected process.
30 seconds.
And so Ashland's next mayor needs those skills to think broadly, act decisively, and lead fairly. I don't have a zippy tagline to leave you with, but I can promise you that given the chance, I'll do my level best for Ashland just like it's done for me. Thank you.
All right, Mr. MacKenzie.
Let's make Ashland a destination, not a pass-through. Our natural beauty, being on the shores of the greatest of the Great Lakes, draws attention. We draw national outdoor TV shows. I appeared on one of those shows, as I told you earlier, to talk about the water quality. Let's talk it up. Let's find a way to leverage this type of interest towards positive growth here in Ashland. The pandemic was hard on all of us, but especially our local businesses. Let's use them and help them grow, especially for our host businesses. Let's use broadband to help attract new remote workers to our mild climate. They could live here and Zoom wherever they want to be. Ashland's unique history should continue to be showcased. It created the charm that we know of Ashland right now. We need to prioritize our infrastructure needs, and changes are paramount. We can't ignore them. I care, I'll listen, and I have time to serve as mayor. I'm retired and can be more flexible with my time. I live in Ashland, continue to live in Ashland because this is where I want to live. I've spent my adult life in public service, so helping my community is important to me. I have the leadership skills needed, and I will be inclusive, reasonable, empathetic, and non-judgmental. I understand the need.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry. Gary said time's up. Sorry.
Sorry about that. It just me say thank you to the League of Women's Voters.
Okay. And Mr. Ortman.
Yeah, I'm absolutely confident I have the skills to lead this city as mayor and do a absolutely excellent job. I've been serving in government for since 2012, and before that 20 years in the service. I've developed all the skills needed to run bureaucracies, to lead people, but I guess I'm really comfortable, and I'm so grateful that I'm the people that are running for mayor. I would vote for any one of them. I don't think there's one of us four that wouldn't get into that office and do a spectacular job, and that makes me so that comforts me to no end. So whoever you choose, God bless you. If you choose me, you are going to get a fine mayor, but I can't say any different about the rest. So thank you very much. Thank you, League, and good night, everybody.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much. As you know, the primary election is February 15th. As a League, we are certainly urging everyone to vote. And thanks again to the candidates and to the audience for your great questions and for your attendance tonight. A little bit bumpy sometimes with the virtual forum, but hopefully it worked out well. And it will be posted. I think the recording of it is going to be posted on the League's website. So again, thanks to Gary and Kate for helping out tonight and the other behind the scenes organizers. And many, many thanks to the Vaughn Public Library for co-sponsoring the event with us. So good night, and the meeting is now ended. Thank you.
Thank you.